Hey, what is up? This is Jake. This week's episode of Whitetail Cribs, we are doing the last summary of 2020, and this is some of the most unique taxidermy mounts we've seen from last year. There is grizzly bears in this one. There's some incredible whitetail mounts, a Frankenstein turkey, and so much more. You guys are really going to want to check this out. Next week, we're going to be showing off the office here, so be sure to check that out next Wednesday at noon here on the channel. If you guys enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave a like and comment. Now, let's go.
This guy was from this past spring, just south of Unalakleet in Alaska. We went and were grizzly bear hunting, and this is where he got dropped off, and then it was a backpack hunt, 10-day backpack hunt after that. So you basically get up high, and grizzly bears, actually brown bears, grizzly bears, are one that don't use patterns. So it's not like a whitetail that they'll use the same trail. These are the king of their area. Nobody messes with them. So they walk where they want, when they want to. So you get up as high as you can, and you just glass, just like your mule deer hunting. Just up there and start glassing. Day one, we were up there, spotted a big boar off in the distance, and we had to cross 2 rivers. And in Alaska, when you cross 2 rivers, I mean, you're waist deep. You don't have time because this bear is moving, so you don't have time to change into waders, and plus you can't carry that weight. So day one, we were taking off. First river we went to was moving pretty good because the snow was starting to melt. And 3 of us were crossing with arms linked, and camera guy swiped up, and next thing you know, all 3 of us were floating down the river. Lost a good portion of our cameras, all the footage up to that point. Regrouped, made it to the other side of the river, soaking wet. Still had enough. We had a GoPro and our backup camera on us at that point. Took off after the bear, but got to the hill and he was long gone. The problem with this is now we're soaking wet. All of our gear is soaking wet. We've lost half our cameras. We do the hike of shame back to our tent, sleep for a night plus, try to dry out. But again, it's Alaska, so the humidity's awful. Never really got dried out for the rest of the trip. Day 5, we're up on that same glassing knob, spotted this guy with a sow, took off after him. It was one of those most memorable days because it was literally a 10-hour stalk to get to where he was at. When we took off, we didn't know what they were hanging around about, but turns out there was a moose kill there. So there was a sow and a cub, and then this guy, and they would all go back and forth around this moose kill. The last 200 yards, we actually stalked up a river, topped over. The guide started calling, and that's when this guy got up from his bed, and I just remember in my scope, his head looked like a beach ball, just giant. Presented a quartering 2 shot, made a good shot about 225 yards. And again, cold, wet, and miserable. That's when the real work started because we took pictures, and then we had to skin this guy out and go back to camp, which was a good 12-hour hike away. So I think I was gone a total of 9 days in the field and lost about 22 pounds on that hunt. So if you're looking for a diet, you can go grizzly bear hunting. That's a good one.
This buck we called Short Tail. Saw him the year before. We figured he was 3.5. We would have shot him if we had the opportunity. And then the same buddy that let me hunt on that property, I grabbed these fence posts from him, and I cut this rub down and made this whole thing this year. So it's a really, really cool buck.
This one I shot in 2006. It grosses 205, nets 195. Got trail camera pictures of it, seen it the last day of June. Put on a lot of inches. It was probably 140-inch frame the last day of June. And then it showed up on our place into October. I ended up shooting it November 2nd, I believe. Second time I'd seen down on my stand.
This here is my very first tree stand I ever hunted with years ago, and my first bow. I mean, the bows have come so many, the old sights, and it sounds like a 2x4 hitting a tree when it goes off, but that's my first bow, and to display it, brought a tree in the house and put up a tree and a tree stand. Not many people have a tree in their house, but I just think it gives it such a cool look with the deer head and everything here. This deer, another deer, the last 4 deer I've killed, I literally scout them, trail camera, narrow it down, get in a tree stand, and then see where they're coming out, try to go closer. And I beat this deer at his own game. He busted me a couple times, but I ended up getting him 30 yards with my bow. He thought I was in a tree stand that he busted me in, and I killed him 30 yards. And these displays that you see, I got tired of just hanging my deer on the wall. So this was my own creation. I didn't copy it from anybody. You go to Cabela's or wherever, you see how they mount their deer, and it looks so cool. So I brought it to home I was in a tree stand and saw some old fence posts and stuff, and I come up with this idea of, it just gives them such a cool, realistic look, and I've got several renditions. They're like deer head. No two are the same, so you can make them whatever you want. I hope somebody gets a good idea from this.
And I'll start off with my favorite head. Most people know this deer. It's killed in 1965. This is the Illinois Roadkill. It's the largest framed whitetail most people believe in the world that's ever hit the ground. Most people know the numbers, but I'll go through some of them with you. 31.4 beams. I think it's 29.7 on one side, 31.4 on the other. 31.4 wide. Had this tine growed here, he would have been one of the top typicals of all time. Barely makes Boone and Crockett at 176, but he is absolutely one of the greatest whitetails that's ever lived. Hands down, no doubt about it. 29 change inside. He's as good as they get. 6-inch mass measurements throughout, and his horns are absolutely the greatest quality horns if you're an antler collector like I have been for 30 years, longer than I guess, but the horns are made of marble almost. They're like chiseled out of granite. These older deer, a lot of times the way their antlers mineralized, and it happens once in a great while in recent deer, but a lot of times deer grew from minerals, supplements, things like that. You know, this deer was eating just whatever was out there. So this is a deer that I've wanted since I was 10 years old, and it took a tremendous amount of work to get this deer.
I just competed with this bird in Nashville. I got second in the Masters. This is actually one of my birds. So the skin, this bird is kind of a Frankenstein bird because I got bits and pieces of all different types of turkeys on here. So his head is off a Rio I killed in Texas that was freeze-dried. His skin and his beard are off an Indiana turkey that I killed last spring. And his spurs are the best spurred turkey that I've ever killed. I killed this bird probably 6 years ago in West Virginia. These spurs are just shy of 2 inches. I'll probably never kill another bird like him.
This buck here is my pride and joy. I called him Sherman. Had a ton of history with this deer. The year before, he was a big non-typical. He had a double main beam on his right side. He lived all summer on about 15 acres. About the time, I think it was September 18th, he disappeared. And I spread my cameras out again, trying to relocate him, and I found him about a half a mile away. And I concentrated everything I had on him, trying to figure him out. And right when I felt that I was going to get my shot at killing him, he showed up and had his entire beam snapped off just below his brow tine and his double main beam. This photo here on the back is actually of him when he was the non-typical, and he snapped it off right there. And oddly enough, shed hunting, you know, you figure you had all that antler laying out there. Shed hunting, the only piece of antler that I found was the base to his broken off thing. And I actually had stepped over it twice, but I was shed hunting and it was raining, and I was going the opposite direction on this trail that I had walked previously, and the white pedicle caught my eye. And so I incorporated that into the base, and I built this base for him.
These are 2 more archery bucks I had taken back-to-back years. This one here, with this, I purposely, when I mounted, I did not fix this. Real quick story on it. I shot this buck on the ground. I was steel hunting, and I got in tight on him. I shot on it, and he stepped forward, and I hit him right in the socket, right on the shoulder ball. Not good. He takes off like a bullet through a bunch of beech brush. Well, the beech brush stopped. So took me a while, but I snuck into it. Could not see this deer. I knew he was laying there. So I crawled in, I stepped over a log, and I got straddle of the log, and I look, and I see an eyeball looking at me up through the beech brush. I'm like, this is not good. Well, I can't draw my bow because I'm off balance. I get my leg over, and I sent an arrow into that brush. Again, not a very good hit, but when he come up out of there, he was going to kill me.
I got up against the log. I was putting another arrow on, and I shot him at about 4 feet, right there, when he turned his head. I thought I was done. That one I remember very well.
These are some strikers I carve. I like to carve them for turkey hunters. I used to take them to the shows and sell them, but these are some of the ones I have left. I just whittle them with a pocket knife. I was a stay-at-home dad for a long time. And took care of my sons, and when I was bored at night, I'd sit with a popcorn bowl and whittle these with a pocket knife while I was watching my kids, while they were watching their Barney and shows. I just mounted this myself this summer, and I think he came out pretty good. I love his, he's got these really great fronts, 20 inches each one, so it's really kind of a neat bull. He's not a monster, but he's just really cool. Killed him in an Indian reservation property. There was actually artifacts on this guy's property, and I was able to pick some of them up and not get fined because it was on his own property. If I'd done it on Indian reservation property, it had a pretty big fine. I practiced carving the memory of this hunt on this gun stock because I was gonna do it on the real gun I shot it with, and I did that as a practice run because I'd like to do that on my gun to commemorate that hunt.